It's interesting and it's wild. And, it's funny because every time we talk about that, like, what's your secret sauce and what's the thing? Like, listen, this is not this isn't rocket surgery. Like, we're not curing cancer here. We don't have some proprietary technology. Like, we don't have our own AI out here that we're developing, that we have $1 trillion developed in. There's one thing, it's consistency. Pick the thing that you're going to do and go do that thing for 6, 8, 12 months. And the adage, there's two things in real estate that I've heard that I laugh at all the time. One is that if you want to do something if you want to make money in real estate, you sell stuff to realtors. And two is that when realtors find something that works, they do the only logical thing, and that's stop doing it. And because they like, oh, well, I did it really well. And I just we listened to this thing the other day, or we talked about it the other day, and I listened to it several months ago. This guy was on stage at a Keller event about 1.5 years ago. And he was doing this golden letter where, a golden letter is you write a letter to the specific neighborhood, and he was sending it out to several 100,000 people. And he was doing like 8 to 12. He was getting 8 to 12 under contracts a month doing this letter, right? Wow. The letter's simple. So if any real estate agents that are watching this want to know what it is, they can email me at brianbarry@kw.com, and I'll send it to them. But that commercial, thank you for that commercial. But this guy did it, and he did it for like 6 months, and he stopped doing it. And he was like, why is my business down? You stopped doing the thing that you were doing that was making the money. And and so it's like, find that thing that you're good at and just go do it, right? I don't care if it's networking, if it's coaching, if it's volunteering, if it's Facebook, it like, create your presence, create your brand, create your value, and that will attract people. That was how my brother got into the real estate business. He owned a coffee shop in Center City, Philly. When he got licensed, he didn't tell anybody in our family that he was a real estate agent, which sounds completely logical. And then what he did was he picked 3 coffee shops, and over a 3-week span, he would go to that same coffee shop every day at the same time. And here's what would happen. During that first week, I'd be sitting there, and Brian and Paul would walk in, and they would, they're coming in their routine. By the end of that week, they're like, that guy's been sitting here. He's here every day. And by the start of the second week, you go, hey, how you doing? And you get like a nod. And by the end of the third week, you're like, hey, you guys are here every day. Like, what's going on? And he would rotate that, and he built a very, very big business and put thousands of people in his database in a year's time by 3 coffee shops, 3 weeks, and then you rotate them and go into the same coffee shops at different times in the next 3 weeks. You're at basically 9 different stops over that period of time. And he was just consistently, it's time over task with this.
But you can't delegate that. You can't outsource it. You can't have someone do it overseas. You have to go do it.
And you know what? He lives in Venice, Florida. He lives in Venice, Florida now. He still has his real estate team in Philadelphia. He posted a house for sale in Venice, Florida, and the clients that he has up here were like, hey, can you sell our house up here? And we want to put an offer on that house down there. And like 40% of his repeat clients.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because he built relationships over time.
Oh man, okay. I'm just real quick. I'm hearing from the best that I talk to, the best teams, the podcast. I feel like now more than ever, between AI, social media, things like that, people are starving for one-on-one conversations. They are starving for human interaction. And, don't get me wrong, I think I believe in various types of marketing or whatever branding. I do. But a real conversation, looking at somebody across a coffee shop table, and going over maybe the trials and potential tribulations, the expectations conversation we're talking about. These things are so pivotal right now in our sales game, in our real estate game. And I really hope that agents are listening for this one, because you got to figure out right now to be a human again. You know what I mean? I know it's easier to do the AI bots and things like that and social media. I get that. But eventually, let's also be real too. What do they say about muscle? You know what I mean? use it, you lose it.
Yep.
It's the same thing with interacting with people, with the things that make you brilliant and funny and quick-witted and all that stuff. That's just because you're just constantly flexing that muscle. You're exercising it.
Amen.
And I'm just hoping that we get more to that, because that's what makes real estate fun, man, is when you have those really great conversations and you build those relationships with people. Hence what you were just talking about with your brother. That's big. And then on top of it, and I'll throw this on top, feel free to jump in wherever, guys, but people don't finish it, right? They start the project, they start this thing, they start this, Brian, you're saying the letter campaign, right?
Yep.
And they don't, go to the next thing or create multiple. What if you had like 4 or 5 different letters? You're right. Now that's something I would say, okay, this letter is really successful. Let me try another letter, but in a different capacity. Let's see who else I get. That's something that I would say.
And they want to perfect it, right? Like because we have so much technology out there and there's so many things at your fingertips. You're like, you want to become like it's overthought, right? Like, and
overpowered.
Yeah, right. Like in my head, I think like sometimes you're over organized, right? Like I open my file cabinet and I have a folder for a folder for a folder, and there's one piece of paper in that, right? Like I need to do that, probably not. But sometimes people want things so perfect that they get paralyzed by the analysis by paralysis, but the perfection, like, oh, it's not exactly perfect, and it's my brand, so my brand has to be perfect. And we, one of my agents told me this, that she was told this years ago, and it's, go make a mess of things and we'll help you clean it up. Like, action will beat inaction every day of the week.
Yeah.
It's just a fact, right? And I think that's the thing, and having those conversations and being in front of people and like, there's a difference between like script play, right? We're role play and script play. You can use those things and Paul and I are not good. I know Brian's not a script guy either, but like, we could take bullet points from that and we could perfect the way that we're saying things and articulating it, and maybe like navigating words, because sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it, and all those other things.
Big time.
But you can practice it, but until you're taking live fire and having real live conversations, you don't know what's going to happen. And nobody overthinks of anything more than you. Nobody thinks as much about you as you do, type of thing. And sometimes you just got to go have that conversation and do it.
Okay. And the part isn't even, and I know you guys will agree on this one, it's not even the fact of what you're saying. It's what that other person's saying back to you, how you can process that information, and then now give a good response to answer their question.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you answer it effectively, trust is now built.
Well, what you just said to me was people aren't being heard when they talk, right? Because what I oftentimes see is especially with, and this is not an indictment of script, but like when you practice the script so much, somebody says something in your head, you're already thinking about the next thing like, I'm supposed to say this next thing. And if they say something completely out of pocket, you're paralyzed. But like, he's one of the things that he always says is when you're asking a question and somebody starts to go, you go, tell me more about that. And what else? And what else? And like, you just keep saying what else and let them exhaust their thought. So I did it, and I was like, I don't know if this works. And I was practicing, and then all of a sudden I'm practicing on my wife. And she's like, are you using one of those books on me? Because she's like yelling at me, and I'm like, tell me more about that. And she's like, and another thing, and another thing, and another thing. And you're like, then tell me what, and what else, and what else, and what else. And all of a sudden, it's like she's exhausted by talking about it, and you're like, all right, here we are. Like, now we can unpack this.
One to incorporate is yes and, right? Somebody says, Brian, Paul, whomever, your prices aren't the lowest. Yes, and here's why, right? And so you're immediately disarming and you're accepting it and you're moving on, right? It's not, you're not defending what is there's a good reason as to why I'm not the cheapest, right?
Glad you brought that up. My natural response has been, that's a great question. Here's why. Like, it's just a longer version of that, but now it's shortening that down, yes, here's why.
Yeah, you're validating them, right? Like that's a great question. Like you're validating them, their thought process.
Yeah.
Brian's agreeing with, yes, you are absolutely right. Like you are, I'm not validating your thought process. I'm affirming that you're right. And it's the idea of like, experiences is expensive and inexperiences will cost a fortune type of thing. Like that's it, right? Like yes, and here's why.
That was personally my biggest struggle early on in this career were social skills. Like how do I wasn't good at mortgages and I wasn't good at social skills. I wasn't really good at either one of them or both combined. Like how do it's trying to figure out, it's stop making it about me. It's about the individual you're talking to. And unless you genuinely care about them and ask the right questions to ask, how can I help? That was the most impactful thing I learned, was to learn how to shut up and ask somebody, hey, I know you were referred to me by X, Y, or Z. I'm glad they connected us. How can I help you? And then just stop talking. And genuinely, like, they will tell you everything that you need to know.
They really, really will.
Yeah.
It's a skill, right? Like, and that human interaction, asking the right questions and asking the questions, Paul, to let people just talk. Stop asking close-ended questions. How can I help you? I'm going to find a house.
It's going to take you to put in a new mortgage today. Like, no.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the question, do you know anybody that's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? What's the simple answer to that? No.
What can I say to this person to get off the phone as quickly as possible?
I hear those phone calls. People say, what can I do to get you in a mortgage? Or, do you know anybody that's wants to buy or sell a home? It's like, no, man. No, come with something that you're going to give to them. Start a conversation. They already know what you do.
And it has to come, like, it has to be authentically you.
Great point, Brian. Great point.
But, thanks again for coming on, and looking forward to see you on the golf course this year too.
Absolutely, buddy. Thank you guys very much. It was awesome.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian and Brian.
All right.